Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Our speaker today is Maulana Munir Hassan from Malaysia. Maulana is trained as Maulvi, Alim and Fazil under Maulana Saleh Salahuddin and his brothers Amiruddin, Hamid, Ahmad and Muhammad. Maulana is also graduated from Darul Uloom, Newcastle, and with 6 years distinction. His topic today is Reflection on Muslims within South Africa.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم اجعل حياتي حياة صلاة وسلام على رحمتك للعالمين والسماوات والأرضين مأوى الفقراء والمساكين والأراملة واليتامى والمستضعفين والمظلومين وعلى أمه أم النور آمنة رضي الله تعالى عنها عليها الصلاة والسلام وعلى أبيه عبد الله وعلى أزواجه كلهن. وأخص بالذكر الصديقة بنت الصديق علامة الأمة ترجمان القرآن شارحة السنة عائشة بنت أبي بكر وعلى أصحابه كلهم. وأخص بالذكر إمامنا وأبانا في العلم وقبلتنا في طلب حديث رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم سفير رحمة الله محمد إلى العالمين إلى مشارق الأرض ومغاربها فهامة أمنية قلب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أبي هريرة عليه السلام. At the outset, it is crucial that I locate myself in South Africa. I am humbled and honored by your invitation. I speak to you today on a very sad Friday in our country. In our newscasts, we are terrified upon hearing that a major retail chain is retrenching thousands of workers. A clothing chain has closed its doors. Mines, which are a crucial limb of our economy, are retrenching thousands of workers. The brutal long-term effects are just too frightening to conceive. Extended families in which these workers are providers of basic food, essential medication, basic shelter, elementary schooling, etc., are slipping into an earthly Jahannam. I am honored that my hosts are among those who work without discrimination in the alleviation of poverty and in the skilling of those people who are left behind and are cast aside by a global dhulam and riba-based political economic system. This honor is one that I do not take lightly. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them every success in their noble endeavors. Today I conclude and I look at my reflections on Muslim life or Muslim living in South Africa. and in the African continent at large. I will tie in with things I spoke in my previous 2 lectures on Muslim life in Africa and in Southern Africa. Before I commence, I would like to take courage and to take guidance from one of the great giants of Islamic thinking and Islamic thought, the Iranian Ayatollah, the Iranian sociologist, Dr. Ali Shariati. Dr. Ali Shariati is one of the highest ranking thinkers in the history of Islamic thought. He is one of the founders of the Iranian Revolution, which toppled the regime of the Shah, which pulled the rug under the feet of British American imperialism in the land of Iran, which pulled the rug from under British and American concessions for oil and tobacco in Iran. Ali Shariati, when he started exploring and thinking about Islam, conservative forces were critical of him and told him that he should not probe and think into the painful issues that hurt Muslim society and the Muslim Ummah at large. In response, Dr. Ali Shariati, Shaheed radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, said in one of his lectures, in recent years, most intellectuals have come to believe that talking is no longer of any use, and that to speak of our suffering is of no benefit. Until now, we have constantly talked and discussed our sufferings without doing anything or undertaking any action. We must therefore close the era of talking, and everyone must begin acting. Ali Shariati rejects this notion. In my opinion, that is in the doctor's opinion, in my opinion, this view is based on an oversight, because in reality, we have not talked up to now. We have not spoken of our sufferings. We have not closely and scientifically analyzed our sufferings. This important point of Ali Shariati should give us courage and guidance that any step forward can only be based on an unapologetic and an uncompromised forensic introspection of the Muslim self and Muslim society. Now, coming to the continent of Africa, previously I spoke about the continent of Africa as being the object, the prey of centuries of pillage. I want to read 2 pieces from 2 books that show how Africa as a continent has been and is constantly pillaged. Let us look at the pillage of one region through 2 points in history. These 2 points are the pillage of ivory and its animal richness, and the pillage of the rubber of the region of Congo and how it was done. One key figure who exposed the King of Belgium's vast slave colony of Belgium was an English worker in Congo. His name was Edward Dean Morel. Edward Dean Morel is a trusted employee of a Liverpool shipping line, a subsidiary of a company that had monopoly of all transport to and from Congo. And it was given this right of transport monopoly of goods by King Leopold II of Congo. Right? King Leopold II, when you read his image, when you glance his image in the media of that time, he portrayed himself, and the media of that time portrayed King Leopold as a benevolent, Jesus-like figure, as a person of overflowing compassion whose mission it was to civilize and uplift the continent of Africa. Morel spoke fluent French. After 20 years of ordinary working as a clerk in Belgian Congo, Morel got a leave, a pass on which he could travel by ship to Europe and rest for a holiday and come back. Morel labored also as a clerk, writing out a false accounting. That false accounting, it tabulated the pillage of Congo and the slavery of Congo as trade. What happened to Edward Morel? He, on the ship, on the trip from the coast of Africa back to Europe, he got off that ship and he started looking at what was offloaded. And he saw in this whole abundance, it was not just one ship that they were going with. It was a whole stream of ships that was going to take its pillage to Europe. And what did he see? He saw the offloading of hundreds upon hundreds of elephant tusks and other elephant goods. Today we live in an artificial world. These animal goods is the wealth and the resources that brought Europe the wealth that it has today. Today the West makes a big noise about whaling and not killing whales. The very extinction of the whale population of the oceans was brought about by European whaling. The lights of all the rich houses of America were fueled by what? Were fueled by whale oil. The seas of the ocean south of South Africa were made blood red by who? They were made blood red by the whalers of Europe. The extinction of the whale is a European achievement. So what Edward Morel saw was the disgorging of infinite and untold wealth without any payment. And then he sat and he waited. And he said, let us see now what goods are put back into this ship. Edward Morel saw no goods going back into that ship, those ships. He realized then that there is no trade, there is no British East India or British East Trade Company. There is no Dutch East India Trade Company. These were all instruments of pillage, plunder, and slavery. And he came to realize that who was King Leopold? King Leopold was the emperor of slavery. And what is the origin of European wealth? The origin of European wealth was plunder. Now that is the region of Congo. Now let us look at it today. The world changed. It changed so dramatically. It changed so completely. It changed so terribly when the United States of America used 2 atom bombs, without any justification, of course, on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It showed the world that everybody and anybody will forever and ever live in servile fearfulness to the United States of America. But where did this energy come from? Where did this energy come from? This book is published by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. It is one of the highest, the most premier places at which scientific research, scientific study takes place in the world. The author, Gabriel Hecht, in his preface, he says, when he opens his argument, the world entered, and he is saying that Africa was never free. We live under the illusion that Africa achieved freedom. He says no, Africa can never achieve freedom, and the reason for that is this. It is Congolese uranium which powered the Hiroshima bomb. Do you see the link between wealth, power and energy in different forms? From the time of King Leopold with ivory, etc., and slave labor, and today in 1945 and before, the very same region, people ask, and they say, no, why is Congo so poor, and why they running this way and they running that way? He says it is Congolese uranium which powered the Hiroshima bomb. All those nuclear plants which give the West, when you go to those capitals of France and you see this extremely hyper first world standard of living, where does that uranium come from? The highest quality of uranium, it comes from the Congo. So this historical line of privilege and plunder is one that continues unabated. Then Heft continues and he looks at the seeding. What happened is when the European power, it's not only America, which realized the richness and the optimum value of Congo's uranium, it is all the European powers who realized its value. And he explains throughout this book what happened after that. It was the seeding, the deep, deep, deep seeding of every conceivable overt and covert intelligence agency into the African continent. When the American executive and the American executive and the European powers realized what is Africa, they configured in their mind only one thing, that they and only they must be the masters of the control of Africa's resources. They realized another thing, that their well-being is not indirectly, is directly and totally contingent and dependent upon Africa's resources. And he concludes this book in a very pessimistic light. He says that because of this realization, for very far into the future, Africa's future is a dim and bleak future. I conclude now with that point of Africa and the origins of its poverty. I want to link back to one previous thing I spoke about, and that is what I call dominant Islam. Dominant Islam, it is the Islam that holds overwhelming power over us. When we speak about the dominant political order in South Africa, prior to the release of the liberation movements, and each one of them are noble and honorable liberation movements. And all their key figures are honorable people in my opinion. All their dead, all their killed are noble martyrs in my opinion. That order was an apartheid order. It swept through every aspect of our life, from the health care to the mud roads that was once upon a time the Indian locations, to the schooling system, to the Bantu education system. It permeated every aspect of our lives. This dominant Islam also, it permeates every aspect of our lives. However, it is not one that does us good. And the point I want to emphasize is the issue or the aspect of education. We have never had, and we do not have, a system of education. Let us look at two textbooks. These textbooks were developed by what is called the Tarak College. What happened during the 1976 and after, because of the student unrests, the African schools were a war zone, with the military occupying the schools. And the Christian churches developed colleges of their own to educate youth and so forth, to give them an alternative to matric. It's impossible to go to a school in which you have a hostile army. These are two textbooks, African Studies course. Now, the date of publication is 1980. Now, you must compare the madrasa syllabi of that particular time. You must have the records, and every mosque must have a record of its lectures. Its congregation must